2, 1.
Here we go!
Welcome to this special edition of Shifting the Paradigm. I'm Cristina Gomez, your hostess for this next hour of adventure and UFO shenanigans, where we look and think outside the proverbial box, jump down rabbit holes, and where the red pill is actually a red tic tac. For the past 20 years, Andrew Nock has written, produced, and directed a wide variety of TV shows all over the world telling compelling stories, from life and death struggles in developing countries to the search for the truth behind the UFO phenomena. He has captured and shaped hundreds of riveting stories of the human condition, its obsessions, flaws, and triumphs. Throughout his career, Andrew has returned to documentaries examining the paranormal. He loves the combination of the unusual locations, history, mystery, science, and folklore. Andrew, welcome to Shifting the Paradigm.
Thank you, Cristina. Thanks for having me.
You know, I am totally pumped for this new show with Demi Lovato. I believe that so many fans are going to find such an intriguing exposure to the UFO topic via Demi's show. And now it's an awesome time to do so for the first time in 70 years. It's a topic that's being treated seriously by the mainstream media and representatives in the government. So I'd like to begin by asking you to give our viewers a quick overview of Unidentified with Demi Lovato.
It's an unscripted road trip, basically, where Demi, a mega pop star and actor, takes their best friend, Matthew Scott Montgomery, and their sister, their older sister, Dallas, and they really examine the UFO phenomenon by meeting people, experts, eyewitnesses, and conducting some pretty far out experiments. And it's all done through Demi's kind of unique lens. It's a much younger look at the UFO phenomena. It's really kind of being more inclusive, and it's a lot of fun.
And you've specialized in this genre for over 20 years. So take me back. What got you interested in UFOs and the paranormal?
You know, I think growing up in England, in the north of England, I was always surrounded by weird history. I was surrounded by Roman ruins or medieval castles, and I was just fascinated by the stories, and they were often kind of gruesome stories or stories of hauntings and legends that just, you know, as a little boy, you get really fascinated by. And then there was a TV show that was very seminal in the late 70s called Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, who's the famous author, but he hosted this show and he had crews go all over the world talking to regular people and scientists about weird phenomena like the Bigfoot, about abductions, about crystal skulls. And it just was really fascinating that just these everyday kind of people had these strange, weird sightings. And I was thinking, wow, you know, there's more out there than we realize. And wouldn't it be cool to kind of have a job to kind of go meet these people and go to these strange locations? I mean, often these places that have these strange occurrences aren't big fancy kind of places or populous cities, that they're very strange, like Pascagoula, Michigan. Mississippi, for example, you know, or Dexter, Michigan. You know, how often would you get the chance to go to these places? But they've had significant historic events in the UFO world, at least. So, you know, it's just, I've always come back to these stories because it's just so fascinating.
Absolutely. And it's through stories and folklore that really shape our understanding of the world. And that's what piques our curiosity. Oh, I love it. Since looking into the UFO topic for such a period of time, what are your feelings when it comes to the UFO mystery? I mean, are there elements of it that scare you or excite you?
It all excites me. It doesn't scare me as much as it used to. I think one of the great things about Unidentified with Demi Lovato is that it's a different perspective. It's definitely a younger perspective that extraterrestrials. Demi doesn't like the word aliens. Extraterrestrials are not a threat, or they may not be hostile. They may be here to help us, bring us together, save the planet. It's a different kind of look at the subject that isn't they're here to blow up the White House and make us all into slaves, which has been the kind of the focus of a lot of documentaries. So I think it's a really fascinating time to do this show because there are a lot of you could say disclosure. Some people say it hasn't happened. I think we're probably living in disclosure right now based on what the government really does know. I think that the only thing that really kind of scares me would be maybe abductions, if they're non-consensual. And we get into that discussion in the show. Demi believes that there are occurrences where they are consensual. And we can talk about that in relation to a specific episode, which is really interesting. There was an occurrence in Sedona where I think we all saw a UFO. And so that was very exciting. And it's in the show. So there's actually some really interesting kind of moments in the show. And it's just endlessly exciting. I mean, the big difference between the paranormal ghost world and the UFO world is there's always something new in the UFO world that's coming out. There's always new evidence. There's always new firsthand accounts. And so it's just, hashtag UFO Twitter is alive every single day with heated debate, shall we say. And I think they'll be fascinated by this show, and there'll be a lot of debate about it too, which is a good thing.
And you mentioned there's a lot of evidence kind of coming up with the UFO topic, but you as yourself have classified yourself as a skeptic. So what is it that has kept you intrigued with the topic?
That's, on a personal level, it's really just meeting so many people who have had firsthand encounters. And, are they all wrong? Are they all mistakenly seeing something? Are they all imagining something or hallucinating something? It's just hard to believe that they all are mistaken. And there's definitely occurrences where they're mistaking something for a planet. But it's just, it's so compelling, so many personal stories that you really believe. I always believe that they believe, and I think that's important. And now that the government has come out and said that, 143 out of 144 recent military sightings are unexplained, I think it just adds more credibility to the subject that, I just think more and more people are taking an interest in it and looking at it in a different kind of angle, which I think is a good thing. The field needs to progress.
Absolutely. And going into those cases, right? After the coverage of the Pentagon UFO report, we know that only one case was solved out of the 144 investigated cases. Okay. So do you feel that this has added to the traction the topic is getting with young people?
I think it has to if they're paying attention. And I think that people like Demi Lovato bring the attention to the subject. Demi and I looked at that document and we went through it together. And because it came out during the filming, and there's a scene in the show, there's a quick scene in the show where Demi is talking about this document to her best friend, Matthew Scott, who is a skeptic, and their sister Dallas, who is kind of on the fence, but very, very open-minded. So I think documents like that must give credence to the subject. And I think, if more people get involved and pay attention to this, then I think it's a good thing because, I don't think we can rely on elected officials to move this subject forward for us. And I think the younger generation have realized that they have to take control of this narrative themselves.
Absolutely. And like I say, we are the disclosure. We have to keep our eyes on the skies, and we can have our own experiences. We don't need the government or to someone to sign a paper and say, yep, aliens are real, when in a lot of cases, a lot of us already know the answer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you tell us about what drove you to specifically sign on as an executive producer for Demi's show?
I really thought it was a great opportunity to get the message about this phenomena out to a wider group of people. Demi had, when I signed on, 108 million followers on Instagram. I just looked, and it's 115 now. So it's pretty
Wow.
incredible that their reach is so wide. And Demi has a genuine interest. Demi's had firsthand experiences that you could say are life-changing. When I talked to Good Story Entertainment, who produced the series for Peacock, I likened Demi's revelation, this epiphany, to when the Beatles went to India to study with the Maharishi Yogi. They'd done all the partying, and now they were looking for a bigger meaning in life. And I believe that's where Demi is right now. They've done all the partying. It's been a very public last few years for Demi, a lot of issues, and they've come out stronger. And I believe that this encounter that they had in Joshua Tree late last year has added to that. It's given them a new meaning in life, and it's given them a new spirituality that is just that they want to share with other people. And I think that's what's really important. And I really, there was a chance to, as I said earlier, to present the subject from a different angle, from a younger angle, more inclusive angle. There are people that are in the series that you wouldn't find on the typical Discovery Channel show or History Channel show that are included, and it's a much younger, and Matthew Scott, just all these people. It's just a really refreshing take on the subject. Now, there are some people that you have seen in other shows, like Nick Pope's in the series, Kevin Day, who had a really emotional interview with Demi, because we wanted to bring that credibility to the show. It's definitely a look at the subject from a more spiritual point of view. It's not a government cover-up, paranoia kind of look that some shows have done that I've worked on. And this is definitely, Kevin Day, for example, you probably know Kevin Day's story. He was aboard the USS Princeton, part of the USS Nimitz encounter. And one of the questions that Matthew Scott had was, do you believe that these are hostile? These things that you saw, these Tic Tac UFOs, as we've come to know them as. And Kevin doesn't believe that they're hostile. And that really fits in with Demi's point of view on this subject, which I think is interesting. He believes that they're here as observers. They may have been here for thousands of years, and we share the planet with them, which I think isn't something that you hear typically on regular shows about UFOs.
No, of course not. There are a lot of naysayers and skeptics who not only criticize the UFO topic, but also don't give TV shows much credence for substance. So, what other ways is this show different from other UFO shows? And how does it tackle this highly debated subject other than having maybe Kevin Day and Nick Pope in your show?
I think Unidentified with Demi Lovato is going to appeal to a lot of people. Believers, non-believers, people with open minds, non-open minds. Demi is a full believer. Demi, they want to really help others understand why that they are a believer. And I think for skeptics and naysayers, they'll enjoy watching Matthew Scott and his journey through this, because he starts out not just not believing, but like, well, why do I even care? Why should I even know about UFOs? Well, why is that important? And Demi takes him and their sister on this journey through 4 episodes. We go to different UFO hotspots, we meet with different experts, different eyewitnesses, and conduct these experiments, partly to kind of show to Matthew, who's a skeptic, that something is going on. So I think they'll enjoy that kind of point of view from Matthew, where he isn't a full believer. And I want to say what happens at the end of the series, but he starts to open his mind more to this based on the things he's seen firsthand. And I think if anyone who's a naysayer or a skeptic had been in his shoes in those places, they would also be a little bit more open-minded to what's happening based on what they experienced firsthand and who they encountered.
And how about your experiences partnering with Demi Lovato for this show? I mean, how would you describe the journey that you both went on?
It was fascinating because Demi has a very strong point of view on the subject and wants their point of view to get across, for example, not saying aliens, but saying extraterrestrials, talking about how not all alien abductions are non-consensual, for example. So it's really looking at this topic through Demi's viewpoint and their filter, which I think is really interesting. I think, partnering with Demi it was fascinating because they have such a strong point of view on this subject based on their own personal experiences and working with some UFO experts like Dr. Stephen Greer. They've gone on field trips with them. They've had dinner with Jacques Vallée, for example. I mean, Demi's like entrenched in this subject way more than people realize. They just went to a UFO conference for a weekend. I won't tell you which one. But Demi does this on their spare time and doesn't publicize it for everyone all the time. So it's not always something you'll see on Instagram, but they're doing the work. And just having that access to say, hey, Demi Lovato is doing the show can open quite a few doors. There's Seth Meyers is in the show, for example, that you wouldn't normally have on a regular show about UFOs. They had a very interesting interaction back in 2014 when Demi went on his late night show and said he was a believer. She said she was a believer in UFOs, and Seth kind of mocked her for it at the time. And they have kind of an encounter in the new series in Unidentified with Demi Lovato, where Demi says, well, look, all these things have come out from the Pentagon. What's your viewpoint now? And Seth does have to have to backtrack a little bit and agree that there are things that he can't explain from very credible sources. So just being able to open doors like that, I think, is really great for entertainment value and just to make it different, just that wide reach. And the best example I think I can give you is we wanted to conduct an experiment. Demi believes that the meditation can create a consciousness with extraterrestrials, and you can make contact with ETs and UFOs. And the more minds that get together, the greater the chance of seeing something. So Demi put a call out, an email out to their fans and followers to do a mass UFO meditation. And this is in the show. And, when you have tens of thousands of people all joining in at the same time, as you'll see in the show, the results were pretty fascinating. And I can't think of anyone else who does a show on the subject who would be able to have that kind of outreach to get people meditating all over the world and sending in photographs and videos to prove it at this one particular time, to make that happen. And so just conducting these types of experiments, I thought was great, and only something that Demi could do.
And I love the fact that this show is unscripted, and the way that you're portraying it really shows that Demi has a huge enthusiasm for the UFO mystery and to find out the truth. So do you have any memorable encounters or scenes that you can possibly share with us?
Sure. The mass meditation that happened in Sedona on the top of this mountain was very memorable because I don't know if I was caught up in the moment, but I definitely thought I saw something in the sky. And I've never seen a UFO before, but something moved erratically that none of us in the cast and crew could explain. And that's in the show. So check it out and see for yourself what you think it could be. But there were some other moments as well. We went to a location that has sightings of ETs, UFOs, and spirits and entities. And Demi went on an investigation into this abandoned area that has all these sightings, and definitely made some sort of contact based on the equipment that was there with some sort of entity. The episode's called The Star People, and it's a location that has had a lot of activity, and the local Native American tribes there believe that the entities there are called the Star People. And this is one of the things we wanted to do in the show, is ask these big questions. Are we as human beings and as spirits related to extraterrestrials? Is that possible? And that's something that Native Americans believe is true, that they're the ancestors to us. Something the ancient Egyptians believed in as well. And there's a moment in the show where Demi makes contact with some sort of entity at this location, and it will only speak to Demi. It won't speak to
What?
Matthew. No, we don't get any kind of readings on the equipment. So Demi decides to serenade this entity. So there's a moment in the show where Demi actually breaks into song, and it's a cappella, and it was amazing. And as you said, it was unscripted. It wasn't something that we rehearsed, or we knew that Demi was going to do. And I've seen it, I don't know, 50 times in the edit bay. Every single time, it gives me goosebumps. Because it's just this incredible moment, and I think their fans are gonna freak out when they see it.
I'm already freaking out. I want to see that right now.
Right.
And what are some of the key questions that Demi and the team asked during the show? Overall on the topic, like, are they looking to find out if aliens are already living among us?
Right. So we took the 4 subjects for the show based on experiences Demi has had, or topics that Demi has talked about publicly or posted about. So the first one involves Kesha, the singer. And Demi went on their podcast late last year and told Kesha that they had this experience where they think they were visited by extraterrestrials. And something came into their room, and I won't tell you what happens, but Demi believed that they had some sort of contact with extraterrestrials and some sort of journey. And so we posed the question, was Demi abducted? And as you'll see in the episode, Demi undergoes regressive hypnotherapy, which is wild. So you have to see what happens, but we're questioning whether extraterrestrial contact is always negative, or could it be positive? And Demi believes it can often be positive. And Demi does meet with experiences or abductees. We try to get the terminology right, and finds out a lot about their experiences. And some are positive, and some are not positive. So that was one of the big questions. Another question was, as you said, are they already here? And we go to Catalina Island to have a discussion about, maybe extraterrestrials aren't traveling light years to come visit us. Maybe they're already here, hiding, maybe in the oceans. There's been a lot of discussion about transmedium objects, UAPs, and a lot of that discussion has been around the Southern California coastline, where there's been sightings in 2019 and the Nimitz encounter. Do we have USOs and underwater submersible objects? And does that mean that they are actually here and not traveling to come visit us just to observe? That's another question. Another one question is that, are we related to extraterrestrials? Are our spirits related to extraterrestrials in the stars or here? And then what was the third one? The third one was, about contact. Are you able to make conscious contact with extraterrestrials and bring them here? And some people believe that's possible. Other people think it's not. But we kind of put it to the test, and I think that's interesting. And one of the tests that Demi does to kind of set up this idea that the mind has influence outside of the body is Demi undergoes a remote viewing workshop. And if you know what remote viewing is, it was a technique that was taught in the 70s and 80s to servicemen to try and teach them this kind of like second sight, this psychic technique of seeing things that weren't around them. And it wasn't something that was created to be used just with psychics. The point of Project Stargate was it was a technique that could be used and taught to anybody. And so Demi undergoes this remote viewing workshop, and the results are pretty amazing as well. I mean, Demi may have some psychic ability. There is Native American blood. And Demi talks about that a little bit, but it's definitely another thing that people are going to want to check out.
It seems like in just these 4 episodes, you're putting years and years of what people research just in a few hours, and that's insane. It seems like you're covering so many different topics of the UFO phenomenon that a lot of other TV shows simply just don't cover, especially in just 4 episodes.
It was ambitious. It was very ambitious, But we wanted to ask him big questions. And, you know, as a TV producer, it's exciting, but it's also terrifying when you say, okay, Demi, let's see if you can learn remote viewing in like 2 hours, because you don't know what's going to happen, right? You have no idea if it's possible. You hope it's going to be possible. And, you know, mass meditation, are we going to see anything? You know, I've done other shows where we've never really done sky watches because people think, well, nothing's ever going to happen. You're never going to see something. We did 3 sky watches in the series, and we captured something on camera each time,
Wow.
which was pretty amazing. Now, I don't know if you know, I'm sure some people could try and debunk them, but you know, there are things that we couldn't explain that moved erratically. So we tried to make the show as ambitious as possible and as entertaining as possible. And, you know, if you just want to see what it's like to hang out with Demi, then this is a pretty amazing show to do that. You know, what's it like to be traveling around in an RV with Demi and their best friend? And you see this connection between the two of them and Demi's sister that there's just like, I mean, they're hilarious together. It's something that you don't normally see a megastar open up to be like that, you know.
So not only does this show sound ambitious, but it's also a very courageous quest for an established musician to go on. How does Demi go about bringing credibility to this show?
You know, Demi really wanted to meet as many credible eyewitnesses as possible and present some credible evidence. And I think meeting with Nick Pope, who used to work for the Ministry of Defense in the UK, is about as credible and as level-headed bloke as you could get in this genre. You know, he's just a really smart guy, and he's never seen a UFO. So he is only looking purely at the evidence and data. And so I think, you know, it's meeting people like that, but it's also it's really putting yourself on the line by doing experiments on camera that may or may not work. You know, that I think really adds some credibility to the show, because they're just, you know, Demi doesn't have to try and do these experiments, you know, but they wanted to, and they wanted to see what happened. And I think the results are really, really interesting. You know, and one of the things we wanted to do is not present a lot of footage in the show that has been disputed. You know, you see a lot of promos for other UFO shows that have a lot of like YouTube clips of UFOs that, you know, aren't real, but they're there to kind of amp up the episode. And we wanted to kind of stay away from anything like that. You know, for example, when we went to Catalina, we shot a scene where Brittany Barberi, who's a ufologist, shows this footage from a 1966 Navy film of a UFO that's captured flying over the island. It's kind of a famous piece of footage. But then we later found out that it'd been kind of debunked by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in the 1980s, and we decided to cut that out of the show. You know, as other shows would kind of keep it in there and say, well, let's let the audience decide. We really tried to kind of not use any footage or photographs that were in question, which I think really helps add to the credibility of the show as well.
And it's very wise. At least I think so. Overall, what is Demi's mission? Is it to convince family, friends, and followers that the pilots behind these objects are extraterrestrial in origin?
I think so. And I think their mission, I don't want to speak on behalf of Demi, but I think they just want to open up everybody's mind to the idea that there is a higher consciousness, that there's something beyond all of us that may be connecting all of us, that may have some connection to these higher beings, and that, you know, there are a lot of problems on the planet, and we're trying to figure out how to come together, how to save the planet from environmental disaster. And Demi thinks that this could be one solution. If we reach out in a positive way, who knows? Maybe there's some sort of other entities out there that are wanting to take care of us, but waiting for us to kind of reach out in a positive way. That's not a threat. That's not some sort of, you know, they're a threat to national airspace or security. Maybe they're waiting for us to progress past that point. And it's just opening up younger people's minds and just allowing them who are, you know, maybe have been pushed out of the subject, younger people, gay people, people of color, to really all be involved in something and take back the narrative that they're all involved in this, that this could be something that does bring us together, and to not, rely on the government to kind of tell us what's what.
And it all starts by just asking a simple question. Are we alone in the universe? And then from there, that curiosity just like lives inside of you and you go ahead and jump in doing your own research.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating and it's fun, and it's, you can get into really interesting debates with people. But, the thing is, none of us really have the answers. If anyone out there says, oh, I know exactly what's going on, no one really, really knows what's going on. We're all questioning it. And I think more than ever, we're all kind of getting involved in questioning it.
Yeah, and if someone says they have all the answers, you better run the other way, man, because they're dangerous. Can you tell us a bit about the production company, Peacock and Good Story, and when will this show air?
So, Unidentified with Demi Lovato is going to air September 30th on the Peacock streaming network. That's NBC Universal Streaming Network. All 4 episodes are going to drop at the same time. I suggest you watch them in order. That would be the best way to watch it, because there is kind of a series arc, especially with Demi and Dallas, and especially with Matthew and their experience. And Good Story Productions is based in Los Angeles. It's owned by J.D. Roth and Adam Greener, and they're incredible producers, and have such the super smart, and just really they've worked with Demi before. They did a chat show with Demi, and one of the interviewees that Demi had on this chat show was Dr. Greer. And that's kind of what sparked this interest, because Demi was so fascinated by the subject that they wanted Demi to kind of go on this journey and explore it, and just go to these hotspots and meet all these experts and these eyewitnesses. And, it's just been a great journey for everyone.
And finally, what advice do you have for younger viewers that want to be producers or take a role in TV production in the industry?
I think things have changed a lot, obviously, in the last 10 years. Production equipment is a lot more accessible to everybody than it used to be when I started out. You really don't need anyone's permission to make a show. Don't feel like you have to come up with a show and then pitch it to people. I mean, you can go out there and make your own show, do your own investigations. You can obviously post it on internet and social media. And, you may just have a different kind of point of view, just like Cristina, you're doing yourself. You're doing great work yourself. And if you want to get into the more established kind of shows, then you kind of have to kind of reach out to production companies and that make these types of shows and start out at the entry level, usually like a production assistant, and then try and move up to like associate producer. But the best thing is to come up with ideas, have a different idea on how to present the subject, stories that, may have been forgotten about, and just, maybe do some of your own research.
And maybe drop off a cake at the office and be like, please. Because no one can say no to pastries. But Andrew, I'd like to thank you for joining me today to give us the insights into Demi's new show. I really appreciate it. Where can the viewers go online now to find out more?
Viewers can go online to Peacock to find out more about Unidentified with Demi Lovato. They can follow Demi on Twitter and Instagram. And they're going to be posting all the latest updates. There is a trailer online for the show right now. There's a longer trailer that may be coming out closer to the air date of September 30th, which reveals a little bit more about the adventures. And I would keep checking Peacock's website and definitely subscribe.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Cristina.